Morning and welcome to another Outperforming Your Environment series. I'm very excited about what we're going to be discussing today because we've decided that we think it's a good time to bring in the discussion on the relationship between thinking and results. And we're going to focus today on our situation in our home country, which is Zimbabwe. And if you're watching from outside of Zimbabwe, don't switch off because this is still very, very relevant to any country in the world. It's just that our situation here in Zimbabwe, our environment changes so rapidly on a continual basis that we have the privilege, I call it. We are very, very lucky to be exposed to such rapid change. And, you know, a lot of environments, a lot of economies don't get this rapid change. You know, things remain pretty much stable and you can do your budgets accurately and the conditions don't change, your sales price doesn't have to change quickly, whereas in our country, although our economy is pretty stable, the change is very rapid. And it's a very, very good example. It's like a crash course in outperforming your environment, what we go through on a daily basis. So I think, you know, this topic now of the relationship between thinking and results is coming at a very, very good time in this series. Now, just what we were talking about and why we came up with this particular topic today is because we were discussing some of our, you know, mentoring clients and some of the clients that we work with on a professional basis, and you know, while we're not on TV, it's a common problem. And the problem is that as soon as things start not looking the way that you want them, as soon as you're starting to get the results that you don't want, like what we spoke about last week, people tend to automatically go and think about they focus on the problem that's not actually the problem. For example, in our situation with our clients and, you know, even in our own businesses, as soon as there's a downturn in the economy or a downturn in your business performance, the immediate thing is we need more money. That is our natural, it's how we've been misprogrammed to respond to those situations. And the problem is with that is that is not actually the problem. The problem is that we've seen it with our clients, that businesses now for 2 to 3 years, up to 5 years even, will be focusing on how do we get money, how do we get a loan to get ourselves out of this situation, to try and change things that can't be changed, to rely on outside things that are not going to change our situation. And it's a very, very big problem in our economy, in our environment, and it's something that we want to try and you know, hit it on the head and get rid of it, because money is never the solution in business. And if you're starting a business, the rule is you do not borrow money for the first 2 years if you can avoid it. In business, your money comes from sales, not from loans. So if you take that same energy that you would otherwise be spending phoning banks, phoning lending institutions, etc., coming up with all their special business plans and cash flows and stuff that they need, that often costs a lot of money to prepare because you don't have it and you don't know how to do it, so you've got to get a consultant or a specialist in. Those are part of the problem. Whereas if you spend that same energy, that same resource, that same money, getting in the sales experts, the consultants, the marketers, on increasing your sales, you don't need a loan in the first place. And if you don't need a loan, when you're creating that money or earning that money for yourself, you don't have to pay it back to anyone. The problem with the loans is people never think about the fact that we have to pay it back at some point. And to get ourselves to pay it, we're in a troubled situation normally in business when we're looking for loans. And we feed the problem, we dig the hole deeper by getting a loan, because now that hole that used to be a small hole is now a massive crater that we've got to somehow get out in the same environment that we're working in that put us in the small hole to begin with.
Sure. Yeah, the way that Brandon has been saying it, I also take it from another point of view where we are programmed into believing that there are certain things that work in a normal environment when things are stable. When you find that you are producing the results and your strategy is right and you've got enough strategic power, enough to drive the results that you want, that's where you can say, right now I need money because your business is performing well. but you want it because maybe you want to expand your capacity. That's the only rule, because the rule is trying to solve a problem, a struggling business, by way of going to look for money. That's the whole thing. When most people don't realize that the best time to go and get for money, if you want to grow and expand your business, is when your business is already doing well. Exactly. Not when you are in trouble.
Key point is when you are doing well, you can afford to pay back
exactly.
the money.
Yeah. But the moment you run into problems, the first thing that you should stop is thinking about going to look for money. Because normally half the time, the business don't fail because they don't have money. It's not because they started lacking money the reason why a business starts failing. It's not about not having enough resources. So if you jump into getting money, the changes that we have seen in most of the clients and organizations, they get money to fuel a wrong strategy. And it's like if you have got a car which is going in the wrong direction and you say we want more fuel, you give it more fuel, you're actually going faster in the wrong direction. So this is very, very critical for people to understand. Before you ask about money, trying to look for money, make sure that you have got the strategy. Get back to your strategy and make sure that your strategy is right first. This is where most organizations miss it. At the end of the day, they start getting money to fuel. It's like poisoning themselves, because they drink more poison because their strategy is the poison. It's not the lack of money. But when you add money, now you're adding fuel to a bomb. Then it means that that bomb is going to be more explosive and more powerful and more deadly. So you create problems, you fail faster, you sink deeper, because that money, if it's not following a good strategy, it means it's going to sink and that money is not going to come back. If we borrow 20 million to try and solve a problem, a business problem, without first making sure that you have realigned, you have got into your strategy, you have got a strategy that can help you to come out of the situation, you are likely going to sink deeper, because that 20 million is not going to come back. We have seen it in our country. Many companies calling for support, they are distressed, and they say to government, we need money. They were given money, and that money was sunk into those companies. And up to now, that money never came back. They failed to pay back the money.
Why is that?
Because they were fueling the wrong strategy. They did not look at this.
It's not because of the shallow misconception that most people give is because of mismanagement. Yes, it is mismanagement, but it's mismanagement, unconscious mismanagement.
Exactly.
Which means that the strategy, like you say,
Exactly.
that is the problem.
Exactly.
So until your strategy is a correct, healthy strategy, and until it's a realistic one that takes into consideration the environment,
Exactly.
it takes into consideration your assets, your resources that you have available to fuel a recovery from a situation. Like when you fall down, getting up is a process.
Exactly.
And you don't just suddenly get back on your feet.
Exactly.
And so that process needs to be fully strategized and fully understood. And most of the time, there's no extra energy or no extra fuel or water or anything required for you to pick yourself up. It's just as you've already got what you need. It's just simply stand up again, take stock of what's going on, and then you get back into your running race, if that is what you were doing when you fell. And this is where it's all about the strategy.
The challenge we face is, even most of the people, they still think very traditional, even banks. I don't understand how a bank accepts a company that is struggling to give that company a loan without actually making sure, first of all, that the strategy, and trying to look at the strategy and say, is this strategy right, and looking at the assets that the organization has. Because most of the people, they go to look for money not because they've got a lot of idle assets which they are not using appropriately within the organization. There's poor leverage in most organizations because they've got a lot of assets which are idle. They don't even know, most of them, what we mean by strategic assets, a lot of them. So instead of focusing on their strategic assets and changing the way they use their strategic assets and see how they can generate revenue from what they already have, the most important thing they think about is let's go and to the bank and look for more money. When they've got the potential for making money, generating money from their strategic assets that they already have. So what we are saying here is people think that all solutions in business are solved by these things, by money, by history, by things like information, knowledge, expertise, experience, and tactical skills. Those work in a stable environment. When the environment is changed and is now stable, those things stop working. Experience will not work in an environment like in Zimbabwe that we are in now, because that experience is for an environment that was stable and not an environment that is not stable.
That experience actually becomes part of the problem, because you're relating that experience with that solution, that strategy, to a completely different problem.
Exactly.
And it's like riding a bicycle and swimming.
Yes.
Completely different things. So you can't use the same ideas for riding a bicycle as you can for swimming.
Exactly.
And that is exactly what it does. That's quite a strange example, but it gets the point across that we are not riding bicycles anymore. We are swimming.
Exactly.
And we need to now think of the swimming strategies.
Exactly.
So if you're an experienced bicycle rider, that is not going to help the swimmer. We need to think of the swimming.
Exactly. And this is the issue that we face in most organizations. Now, if you look at one of the other things that we talk about, your strategy, and then you are talking about your capacity, your capabilities, in terms of individuals who are in the organization, in terms of the teams, in terms of the organization, in terms of the business leaders, in terms of the entrepreneurs. You really need to make sure that the capacity and capabilities that you have are the type of capabilities that are required for you to perform effectively in that environment that is changing. We also find this very strange, because most people, they go and look for money, but that money is not used to develop the capabilities that are required for the people within the organization to perform in that environment. A person, a manager who was performing well in a stable environment, it's not automatic that is going to continue performing well in an environment that is foreign to that person. It's a new environment. So you need to make sure that those skills also, they're part of the strategic response to the problem. But most people don't think that skills are critical for outperforming the environment. When they get money, they're thinking about buying machines, they're buying this, buying that. Money is not invested in strategy. Money is not invested in upgrading the personal capabilities of the people that are supposed to drive the strategy and get the results. So if you don't have the strategy and don't have the skills, you're only focusing on machines. Machines will not produce. The quality that is going to come from the machines is going to be dependent on the quality of the people who are going to be involved in deploying the skills. Let me give you an example, just one example to explain this. If you are going to a war, you will have assets which are like your weaponry, your vehicles, what. And then you've got the soldiers, the combatants. It does not matter the quality of your machines. They can be high-powered, very high-precision tools, long-range missiles. But if the soldiers are not the right soldiers, who are not trained, who have not been trained to perform effectively in that hot environment, they will abandon those tools. They will not be able to use them effectively. So this is one thing that I find very, very, very missing in most organizations. They forget that critical skills, capabilities of the people, they are a critical part of effective strategic response in an environment that has changed.
And that is what we're talking about, is the focus must be taken away from the wrong thing, which is always well, not always, but usually is we need more money to solve this problem, to buy better, more precision machinery.
Exactly.
Get a longer range missile with a bigger explosion. That is not the problem, because the problem usually has started a long time before it becomes apparent in business, especially if you're an established business, and which is what we're seeing a lot of in our environment, is these very established businesses are suddenly starting to fail, and it appears that it's suddenly, but it's been a gradual descent because of that just slightly misapplied focus. It's the focus on we need more money, rather than let's focus on what we've got, our resources, our assets, and let's use these more effectively, more efficiently, so that when we are now able to make more sales more efficiently, we will have that extra money without having to go and borrow it. And I think that's the key that we're talking about, Cha, is don't believe yourself the first time you identify that problem, because 9 times out of 10 that isn't actually the problem. The problem is deeper than the surface, which is where most of us we slothful, we lazy naturally as a species. We don't look below the surface. So if we're going to be a leader of a progressive business, one that's going to be able to outperform the environments in which we operate these days, we have to look deeper. We have to think harder, and we have to look past the money if our businesses are failing, and we have to look into things like the people, because without the people pressing the right button and telling the machines what to do, the machines are useless. And this is what we've got to think of, and we've got to become a lot more. We've got to take a lot more responsibility as business leaders to the part that we play in the overall environment. No pointing fingers, no excuses, basic facts. If what we're trying is not working, we go back to the strategy, because that is the thing that's at fault. And it's not a personal attack, it's nothing against any leaders. It's just having the courage and the leadership qualities to accept that perhaps our approach is not correct. Let's change the approach. Not the people. The approach.
Yes. Approach is critical, and just to as we come to summarizing, there are 5 things that are critical in any environment that is tough and that is changed rapidly. The 6 things I've talked about: the money, information, knowledge, expertise, experience, tactical skills. They are not the critical focal point to solve the problem. We need to shift to strategy, to thinking, to imagination, to leverage, and then to leadership, because leadership is key. You need the right type of leadership. You need a strategic leadership approach, where you are not just leading the people but also leading strategically. So it's strategic leadership is about, you're now looking at the total picture, because in an environment that is changing, there are so many variables that are changing. So if you lose focus on the big picture, you are likely going to have a very, very bad decisions that are going to come out of that. So it's about being very strategic aware and strategically alert on what is happening, and then making sure that you're thinking. Thinking is very critical. Have more time thinking. It's better to have solutions that are coming from thinking and imagination, rather than relying on the traditional, money, history, information, knowledge, expertise, experience. Those things will not really do much in an environment that is rapidly changing.
Exactly. So what you said there were some few key words that I just want to use in my summary of what we spoke about. So if we are going to get our thinking right, and understanding the relationship between our thinking and our results, the results that we enjoy or experience in life are a direct result of our past thinking. So what we want to do to outperform our environment, to create the environment that gives us abundance rather than lack, is we need strategic entrepreneurial leadership. This is where it needs to change. And that the key word there is strategic, which is looking into the future. Entrepreneurial, which is problem solving, it's solutions. Entrepreneurs, one of the best definitions I've heard of an entrepreneur is someone who identifies a problem in society and solves it for a profit.
Oh,
that's what entrepreneurs do. And when there's a problem in the environment, that is what we need. Is we need the solution givers, the guys that are willing to put everything, to put their neck on the block and say, this is how we're going to do it, and get buy-in from the people and make it happen. So strategic entrepreneurial leadership is what I'm talking about. That's what we need to get. And then it needs to be constantly looking into the future rather than walking backwards, looking at what's already happened. It's a waste of time. What's already happened has already happened. Yes, learn from the mistakes, don't repeat them. But that's all you do from the past, is you learn from it so that you don't repeat the same mistake. And you're constantly looking forward so that you don't walk into trees and things, you know. Okay, so that's it. Understand the relationship between thinking and results is critical. Do not believe the first thing that you identify as the problem, because very seldomly the problem lies a bit deeper than the most obvious one. And money, very, very seldomly, if you're going to borrow money, that very, very seldomly solves your problems. In fact, it rather creates more problems for you. So that's what we wanted to talk about today. Thanks very much for watching. Thank you, Simon.
Welcome.
And we'll see you next week.
Sure.
Thank you.